So yeah, dude, looks a little different than last time.
This is amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, man.
You've done a lot of work.
Yeah, mostly decorating, which is not really my forte. But you know what's oddly enough, like my main inspiration for decorating this place, I wasn't Googling like podcast studios. I was Googling tattoo shops, because every time I walk into a tattoo shop, I'm like, oh, dude, that's a cool piece of art. That's a cool neon. That's a cool, like, I wonder where they got that, or what's the story behind that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's my buddy Kyle Lent. He did a lot of my work, but he drew that up and gifted it to me. But yeah, I mean, like, I want to hang more tattoo inspired stuff.
I love that. And owls are very symbolic.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. He had no idea when he gave it to me too that like owls were like my grandmother's favorite and like bird animal. Yeah. And my first tattoo ever was like a week after she passed. I got her initials over my heart, so it was like came full circle. It's kind of cool.
They represent wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a wise lady.
Yeah.
She'd tell you like it is.
Well, I thought that was perfect for you said your grandma. Like, I think that's exactly what I think of as like old wise owl, like a grandmother figure.
Yeah. She'll also rip your face off too, which owls will also do.
My dad's mom she was from the Midwest, I think from Indiana, and then moved to California. They were kids during the Great Depression, and she was hard as woodpecker lips, man. When I was a kid, I remember there was a short amount of time, like a few months, where my little sister and I would go over, and this is like in old downtown Stockton, and we would argue or bicker like siblings do, and she wasn't having any of that. Go sit in the corner, right? Go stand in the corner, and then she's watching like TJ Hooker. And, just some of the weirdest memories that I have there, but she did not play. And I thought, she's probably nicer to me than she was to my dad.
Yeah. Most grandmas are, dude.
Yeah.
My grandma, my dad's mom, I've actually interviewed her, dude, just like this on a podcast. And we called it the Granny Oakley podcast, cause she's like a full blown Texan, dude, like just like with the San Antonio gal is what one of her nicknames is. But
that's where she's from, San Antonio.
Yeah, she's 90, she'll be 96 in March.
Still kicking.
Dude, like and so this would be a cool conversation for you to see, cuz like for me and for you too, I'm sure like you've been asked, and I'm sure you've asked 100 times, like what were you doing on 9/11? Like what happened that day? Like I can recall every single from the weather to where I was, like, and I was only in 6th grade, right? Like I can remember every second of that day. And I sat her down, I think it was like December 18th or something like that, or maybe it was December 8th. I think it was the day after Pearl Harbor. And so it was like on my mind, you know what I mean? Day after Pearl Harbor Day. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to ask grandma about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I asked her, dude, and she recalls every second of that day. Like, dude, she's so sharp. It's wild. Like her recollection is better than mine. And she's drawing on 3 times the time.
Yeah. That's very interesting, because I just watched, like a couple days ago, my buddy sent me this video. So people send me stuff like that, right? Especially military and historic stuff. And there was a guy who was there at Pearl Harbor, was stationed there at the time. And they took him there, and he's walking around. He said, I remember it like it was yesterday. And I thought that was very poignant, because first off, obviously it's a life-changing event. This is something that is always going to stick out in your mind. And when we store memories, we attach them with the chemical reaction that's happening, whether it's anxiety and stress and, all the chaos that's going on. All those things we're processing in our brain, we store that memory with those. So if our body feels, or our brain believes that, this is a possible outcome, life and death situation or whatever, the amygdala can kick in and it takes over, and you're in your fight, flight, or freeze or whatever. Anyhow, listening to that guy he's 90 something years old too now, and just seeing him walk around and him saying, I remember it like it was yesterday, or it feels like it was yesterday. That's very surreal to me, because I definitely feel that about sometimes, certain combat moments or specific events in my life. So imagine the wealth of stuff, of knowledge that she has in her head, the memories that she has in there that, sometimes we stored them and we don't bring them out until something jogs that memory or whatever, we kind of compartmentalize stuff and use it as necessary. So I wonder what she's got up there.
It's crazy, dude. Like I sat her through, my aunt, she, I always joke that like, if you were to take every picture that she's ever taken of me, you could put them in chronological order and flip through it like a flip book, and you could see every moment of my life. Like she probably has terabytes and terabytes of photos. And a couple years back, she digitized a few of like my grandma, her grandparents, her dad, and so on. And so during that same podcast, I just set up a quick little slideshow. And we went through some of these photos, and I mean, like, dude, they span from her childhood, like she's like 12, all the way to when, you know, she had a whole bunch of kids running around, and like there were some videos and stuff that we watched, like, and she remembered every single thing. Like she would be like, oh yeah, that was in Paris and I was modeling. And then she'd just like move on to the next picture. Yeah. And I'd be like, whoa, like, hang on a second. Like, let's break that down a little more. You were modeling in Paris. Like there's a you know, a glamour shot here, like a 50s, 60s era glamour shot. And you're just going to skip right over that. Huh? Yeah.
That's awesome.
She, but yeah, she's had a wild experience, man. Like lived in Panama and stuff. And it's like, people our age nowadays, they kind of just settle down and stay put for the most part. Of course, unless you live in California the last 2 years, a lot of people are uprooting, but
mass exodus.
Yeah.
Mass exodus. You know, first time, was it last year, I think, or the year before, 2020, maybe one of them was the first time that we've ever had more people leave than come because we always have opportunities for jobs and careers here. And usually a pay increase for people coming, especially from the Midwest or the South, things like that. So it's kind of crazy what's happening in our state here. But going back to like your aunt and your grandma, like I think that you're exactly right. Their experiences in the life they lived was definitely noteworthy and something to explore and ask questions about. And then for us to implement some of that, in my opinion, because life is fairly short. I mean, Nick, even as I look now, I'm getting ready to turn 40 here in like, you know, a week and a half. And I'm like, how did we get here? You know, I'm midpoint of my life or somewhere near. And that's very interesting to me because I look back and think, you know, I've had a very adventurous life. I've got to see a lot of places and do a lot of cool things. But I think about like, you know, if it was all over right now, what does my legacy look like? And I'm glad these last few years I've really focused on trying to make the world a better place and being the change I want to see, being that light in the dark for people who are struggling, because I struggled with empathy when I came home from war. I think I believed that if you hadn't gone through what I had been through, you couldn't possibly understand. And now I realize that everybody experiences trauma. Everybody experiences loss and grief. These are processes that we can't escape in life. We're going to get close. We're social people. Even if we isolate, you know, for the most part, there's usually at least one or two people, even for introverts, that they're close with and they're willing to open up to and be vulnerable with. I admire the way my dad grew up. You know, he was born in 48. In the 50s, he was a kid, and it really was a village taking care of. You know, if you screwed up, the neighbor would let you know. Hell, they'd even spank you or whatever. And if they didn't necessarily tell your parents, but if you did it again, you know, I'll tell your dad or whatever. And that meant something because they held us accountable.
Yeah.
And now we try to coddle people. We want everybody to be okay with how things are. And the truth is that things are always going to be changing and evolving. So sometimes there's going to be good times and sometimes there's going to be rough spots in our life. And we have to be resilient. And even as parents, it's tough. Like for me as a dad, that's tough because I want to save my kids from some of the strife or pain and anguish that life is going to give them. But that really does set them up for failure if I don't allow them to experience those things, because they won't be resilient when they meet resistance. And I want to make sure that I'm raising, you know, young people who are going to make changes in the world going forward for the next generation.
So it's funny you brought that up because like you and I did not exchange notes or anything before you showed up here.
Talking. Yeah.
And two things you've already brought up that I wanted to talk to you about is flight, fight, and freeze and resiliency. So like resiliency to me is an interesting concept just because, and another interesting concept is like the idea of just the relativity of trauma. So because like everybody's had a worse day in their life and that's just what it is, the worst day of their life.
Yep.
And my worst day versus your worst day versus somebody else's worst day could be widely different as far as like the level of trauma experienced, how it was responded to, excuse me. But I find that interesting because different levels of trauma will, you know, like if you were able to like quantify trauma into units, some people respond to 10 times the units way better than somebody who has a relatively, you know, maybe this person's worst day is somebody's every day, you know? And so it's like, anytime I encounter somebody who's just being an asshole, I try to remember that.
Yeah.
You know, but like, it's an interesting concept to think about because like my worst day of my entire life is like, really is probably not that bad. It sucked at the time, but like really in the grand scheme.
You say that with the knowledge of some of the worst days that other people have had.
That's true.
Right? So we compare a lot.
Yeah.
Now,
maybe that's why it's important to talk about it though.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Put it into perspective. Yeah. I mean, like that's so important.
I agree 100%. So I've had some bad days. Now, I'll say this. The Army did a study on response to trauma. I think it was after Vietnam. I'll have to look it up and maybe we can provide a link to it. But essentially what they found was significant, I think, for how we treat mental health, or at least acknowledge its existence and figure out ways to, you know, live with it or mitigate its symptoms, that sort of thing. The Army knew guys had PTSD when they came home from Vietnam, and they said that there was essentially two types of responses, and they had a lot to do with upbringing, childhood, and support throughout their adolescent years. And what they found was people who had a strong family unit, who had parents who were married, who had supportive siblings, and even a bigger, you know, when you talk about the extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, that sort of thing. If there was something wrong, they had someone they could go to talk to about what was wrong, or, you know, and they were shown empathy, they were shown love, and allowed to recover from whatever it was, a scraped knee, or, you know, whatever the situation was as they were growing up. And then you have the other ones who had possibly a broken home. You almost always a broken home is like a split family, and the same empathy or even time, quality time as a family wasn't there, and it was split between, you know, things, especially with a single parent household with other siblings. Things were tough. So these people, when you get a scraped knee, they say walk it off. They say don't cry. You know, all these sort of things.
Almost like they don't have time for it.
Yeah. And it's also what they were taught as well, you know.
Right.
So the people who had a good supportive system growing up were typical soldiers. They were pretty good, not necessarily excellent, but generally better than average, and didn't have like disciplinary issues, things like that. Pretty good soldier. The person who had childhood trauma, who had broken home, they sought out combat jobs, frontline stuff. They excelled in leadership positions and in combat. They were able to compartmentalize and put this stuff to the side, like they had other things. Mom doesn't love me, or, you know, doesn't show me the same love that I know Johnny's mom shows him. They put that stuff aside. So, you know, Jones just died. They put that aside, and they continue. We focus on the mission. That served them well in combat, and they came home. The people who experienced trauma that had good support system, they said, hey, I'm not doing so good. I don't know what's wrong with me. They looked for help. They got better. The people who didn't have a good support system, they got DUIs. They got kicked out of the military. They were the first to go to jail. They were, you know, so they excelled in combat, excelled in leadership positions, failed at life because they didn't have a way to process this stuff, this trauma, or someone to vent to and make them feel like it was okay. And a lot of times that had to do with the stigma surrounding trauma and our belief about mental health.
Do you think that's changing?
Yes. Slower than I want.
Yeah.
But yes, more people are talking about it, more people. And for me, it's always these people with big platforms, right, who do this stuff, because just like you were doing, where we relate to other people, or we compare our stories to other people. The one that comes to mind for me is Michael Phelps. He's the most winningest Olympian in modern history, right? So he does commercials all the time for an online app where you can get mental health help. And he does that because he struggled with depression. He struggled with anxiety and things that you wouldn't think someone who is at the top, of elitism in their field would have an issue where they feel inadequate or they feel something is missing or wrong. You think these people have everything. Their life has got to be perfect. And that's just not the case. We are all more human than we are perfect. So, if we can remember that, it makes us, I think, at least more understanding when we go into interactions with other people. Because I believe there's one or two things happening. People are either asking for love or they're giving it. Sometimes they're asking for it by being an asshole. Mm-hmm. But when we show them kindness, because 10 years ago, my response to people being mean or rude or anything was to be ferocious. And it was to be meaner to them than they were to me so that they wouldn't do that again, right? Mm-hmm. But that just makes them want to be more mean back. It doesn't help. But if I show kindness or, empathy in that situation, it really can help facilitate growth and understanding and better, more efficient communication, which I struggled with. Yeah.
Well, and I think that the same could also be said for an intimate relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, that level of candidness and not, it's I don't want to call it passive aggression, but avoiding it just never fixes it. It's not even a Band-Aid. And that's like, it just, if anything, it makes it worse. And I think that like a lot of the stigma stems from, like, honestly, it's not even like, I don't think a lot of soldiers were like, well, I don't want to get declared medically non-deployable. Like, I think that a lot of those guys were probably like, I don't want to be called a pussy.
Yeah.
I don't want to be called like weak. I don't want to be, you know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. And there's this attitude that comes along, especially in combat arms, that like, you can't ask for those things. And, like I avoided therapy a long time. And like, one of the things that I talked to my therapist a lot about was like, he progressively saw me like getting better. Like right when I first started going to him, I was basically just, asking him for anxiety meds because I didn't want to address any of the shit that was going on in my life. I just wanted to bury my head for a couple hours, And then, like, I wasn't making any money at work because I'm in a commission environment and like, I didn't feel like working. I was burnt out. By the time, 6 months later, a year later, doing way better, got a steady paycheck and all this shit. But like, my anxiety was 100 times worse. And it's like, and he really was able to break down why. And it's because like, I was afraid of losing it all. The more I gained, the more I was afraid to lose. And so like, I feel like also a lot of guys kind of turn their back on getting better. Like I feel like a lot of people don't want to get better or don't know that they want to get better because they're afraid of like, not only the climb, but like once you get up there, now you've got a lot of shit to lose. And right now, like it's kind of safe feeling like you don't have anything to lose. Like, well, this is rock bottom. It couldn't get any worse. Couldn't get any lower than this. First of all, I promise it can. And second, like if you're not working to pull yourself out of that and then continuing to change, like I didn't do part 2. Like I pulled out of it and I didn't change my attitude. And then I wound up right back in it. And I did that stupid, cycle for a long time before I just realized that like you can't just change your situation. You really got to change your outlook too.
There's no shortcut or substitute for hard work, right? If, in some areas you can delegate and have other people do stuff and you can reap the rewards, but mental health, physical exercise. I can't have someone else go in the gym, go run on the treadmill and I lose the weight, right?
I wish, dude.
Yeah. Well, you kidding me? I'd pay for that right now. It doesn't work that way. So
I always joke with Alyssa, like in the morning when you're really lazy and you have to pee really bad and she gets up and I'm too lazy. I'm like, hey, will you pee for me?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you just
Do
can't.
mine too.
Yeah, you can't do mine too. You can't do some of those things, man.
It doesn't work. We have to go through the process. And with mental health, that's one of them. So I fancy myself an expert on trauma, and it didn't start out that way. First off, I just had my older sister, Chrissy, just passed away. She's just turned 48 in January. It's pretty shocking to my family.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Thank you. It's I have to tell you that it's crazy because it's no different than losing someone in combat. One of my brothers that I lost in war, because all the memories you have are all the memories you get. Yeah. And the experiences and times you shared, those are over. So it's final, but we still carry a part of them with us, and that is the same. And I don't think that you don't process it faster. This is lifelong. It's unfillable void, but I get to processing faster now. Part of that is because of the work I've done. I started going to school. I graduated now, but when I started going to college, so I did the same thing. Avoidance was my go-to, right? I drank when I had free time, and I would bury myself in work. So I got a job in the oil field. I was an engineer. Got paid 6 figures. I lived in a state that I'm not super fond of, is Arkansas. I'm like, we could go somewhere else, but they were paying me a lot of money. I didn't deal with any of my stuff. I just said, nope, next chapter. Yep. Essentially, that's behind me. I'm not part of that team anymore, and I'm separate from that. And that's how I felt, that I was separate from the military. And there was a part of me that missed that or wanted it, but I think that I needed something to help push me forward. So I get this job, but I was failing at life. I was not doing anything other than going to work, coming home, and drinking, sort of thing. So I know that I have to figure out what's going on with me, what's my new enemy look like, and how can I fix this? Because it was starting to, destroy parts of my life little by little, and some faster than that. So I started going to school and got my degree in marriage and family therapy. And I think it's hilarious now because I took this thing called the ACE study. It's Adverse Childhood Experience Study, ACEs. And it was developed by this doctor from Berkeley. And it's the one test you don't want to get 100% on.
Yeah.
And I got 10 out of 10. And I was like, man, you're really fucked up. Like, think about this. It says that if you've had 2, right, that you have trauma and, residual effects or whatever. If you have 3 to 5, mine was 10 out of 10. And I was like, holy cow, that's not good. So I said, there's got to be a way to deal with this, to figure out how I can, because what it was affecting was my behavior, my response to stuff. And when we talk about your fight, flight, or freeze, the military doesn't need your freeze and it doesn't need your flight. So they diminish those responses and they push in what some folks would consider brainwashing portion of it, right, or whatever, but it enhances your fight response. I run towards gunfire. I want to go see what's going on. I want to get in the middle of it and see if I can make the situation better. Sometimes in combat situations, that means you gain fire superiority. You're going to be more violent than they are and, essentially take over the situation. I tried to use some of those tactics back here and it failed me, right? And it was because I wasn't controlling my emotions and not necessarily controlling them, but taking a second to allow my body to process this instead of just letting my amygdala take over, which is what was happening. Because my brain kept telling me the response should be, instead of it being an adequate or appropriate response, it was overzealous. It was too much.
How do I gain control?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was, the potential outcome of this could be death. Even though it wasn't life and death situation, my brain was telling me some of these things are. And that kind of freaked me out because I didn't know how to stop that or control it. And that was hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I remind myself often that very little of what we do is life and death. Like, that's right. I'll get in here and, stress out about a mortgage deal like it is life and death, but then I'll just jump in my car without doing any checks or anything. I won't look at my gauges. I won't check my tires and make sure everything's safe. And then I'll just drive home in rush hour traffic like it's nothing, listening to a podcast or something. When in reality, like it's funny how we prioritize anxiety and anger. It's like, like right now, a good example is people trying to cancel other people online. Meanwhile, there's, the Ukraine situation going on. There's an inflation situation going on. There's like a lot of shit going on, and we're worried about entertainment, or we're worried about, and it comes down to what gives us the biggest dopamine hit. I think it's all
and what's funny is what you just brought up. Driving generally is the most dangerous thing we do all day.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting that's what you use to I didn't check the car, and I don't know if the oil's good or the tire pressure's good. I could have got a nail stuck in there, didn't look. My blinkers work. Am I going to try to? I think my blinkers work, and I'm going to get over and hit another car. Any of these things.
Yeah, you don't do any of that shit. But people are scared to fly, where they have to run through a 12-point checklist to make a 20-degree turn. Yeah. It's like, it's crazy.
The way, the way we process things, or the way we prioritize what's important in our life, becomes clouded by what the outside influences tell us is important, right? Is Aaron Rodgers going to go to another team? Is the, whatever sport, is Tiger Woods going to play golf again and win a major championship? These things may pique our interest personally, but are they important? Not really. Mm-hmm. So the stuff that is important, what are we doing about those things? Fostering relationships, communicating with the people. My wife actually posted this thing, and she posted this meme that said, marriage isn't about two people posting kissing selfies on social media. It's about having those hard conversations. It's about pushing each other to reach our potential and beyond that, and having the ugly cries for, our own personal growth as, individuals and as a couple. And I know that her and I have had some ups and downs in the last decade of our relationship. And I'm so grateful that I have someone in my life who's willing to endure some of the craziness that is combat PTSD, is childhood trauma, and encourages me to continue to work to get better every single day. Because it's not, I feel good today, so I'm cured. But if you pop a balloon or make a loud bang, for a second, I'm going to think, am I getting shot at? Am I someone trying to kill me? And right. I wish that would go away, but it doesn't. And I know it doesn't, because it's been 15 years since I've been in a war zone, and I still have that stuff, right? So does my dad, and I think that those things for me are part of who I am, but they're not. They're one chapter in my life. And I didn't get it right the beginning part where I got the early childhood trauma, but I get to write my chapter now, and I get to write the next one too. So I make sure that I'm putting my effort, energy, my time, my brain power, instead of thinking about all the stuff that happened to me and why I could be having this victim mentality. And instead of having a victim mentality, I try to have a victor mentality. I try to think about, how can I win the day today? What can I do to win today? And a lot of that for me starts with exercise, and then it's what's next. So like that admiral from the Navy that said, make your bed. Yeah. That's right. And it's just like that. Fawn actually did that for a year, where she did it. She wanted to make it every day. I tried to help her. She's like, no, I'm doing it. And she, every day. So now she just does it. Mm. And it is nice to get into a made bed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But the amount of tasks that she accomplishes every day is astonishing. And I don't accomplish half of what she does, but I do accomplish a lot. Whether it's fostering relationships, working on the, Kinetic Ink tattoo business, whether it's the Warfighter Overwatch, it's always something that we can improve on. And I want to make sure that the people I'm working with see that from me.
Yeah. So we talked about working out from a mental health perspective, like how do you exercise your resilience, like personally?
Yeah. So isn't it funny that if we ask God for strength, he gives us challenges, and we don't like that.
Right.
But the best way for us to become resilient is it's to do it one more time, whatever it is. You're trying to learn to play the guitar and you can't get a specific riff, well, do it again. And then if it doesn't work, guess what? Do it one more time. And do it one more time. And do it one more time. It's like WD-40, right? So the guy, it's water displacement number 40. Well, it could have been WD-4000 if it took him 4,000 tries. He wasn't going to stop until he accomplished what he set out to do. I think if we keep that same mentality, we become resilient, because life is going to give us resistance. It's going to give us hardship. It's going to give us things that feel either unfair or overwhelming at times, and that's okay, right? Sometimes we need to ask for help. That's okay too. But giving in or quitting, I talk about, I have this saying that I tell kids, because I think it's important for the next generation to hear this stuff sometimes. I don't think they have enough outside influences other than, social media influencers, not that sort of thing. But I tell them, like, you're not a failure unless you quit. But then you're a quitter and a failure, right? Now you've quit and you failed. You didn't accomplish your goal. You're never going to, because you're not going to try again. That doesn't make us feel good. It never will.
Yeah.
I have climbed some big mountains in my life, figuratively and, live and in person in Colorado or here in Yosemite. And I know that it sucks sometimes going up there. I've not trained for this kind of stuff. I'm just going to go hike today and we're going to go do 14 miles, and my legs are shaking. Yep. My body starts giving in, and it's like, man, we're this close. I could stop. I could turn around and start going back down because it's going to be hard. Or I can suck it up for a little bit longer, another half a mile or whatever I need to do, and push myself, my fat ass, up this mountain and not give in. That hardship right there is where the most growth is found. It's not the 90%, it's that last 10%. How do you get through that? How do you find the strength to push through? At the end of the day, your why, the reason for getting up there, has to be greater than the adversity, right? It has to be like, well, if I fail, I'm going to feel, or if I don't make it, I'm going to feel inadequate. And sometimes there's going to be days where we don't accomplish our goal, where we don't make it to the top. But are we quitting? Or do we come back the next day and we try it again? Or, in a few months or whatever, and we prepare and train and then go back and do that. And that's the same thing with mental resilience. We have to train our body. And that's by doing things. So even exercising physically prepares you to do exactly that. You have plateaus, or you have days where you don't want to do it. You're tired. You need to,
That's what I was going to say. If you I would ask myself that same question, like, how do you exercise your resilience? And it has to be working out. I mean, as far as the easiest way.
Yeah. Because
you can physically feel the resistance.
Yes.
Like a lot of the resistance that we face in life is intangible, right? It's a glass ceiling, so to speak. Right. Yeah. But with physical exercise, dude, it's right there.
Yeah. You
can feel it when you're in a ball on the floor because you have a full body cramp and you need to go get an IV bag or something.
You don't need anything to do this. You can go outside and walk. You can jog. You can do lunges and air squats and push-ups and burpees. All of these things, calisthenics that we were taught as young kids, they don't teach you to go do PE for just kindergarten.
No, dude, I'm pretty sure that you can opt out of PE these days, dude.
What?
Pretty sure you can be an art student now. I don't know. I could be completely wrong right now, but I know that there's a lot of kids in high school that are not required to take PE. Have you ever seen that video of, I think it was La Sierra, dude.
Right here.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video?
Yes. Dude, all those kids were so shredded.
Pumps me up. Yes.
Holy shit. It looked like an Olympic basketball team from the 60s, dude. Yeah. I mean, literally all these kids, and they're they have news crews there. They're just pumping out dips, dude. Yes. Looking at the camera. I remember my dad, because my dad went there. Both my parents did, but he told me that they had different color PE shorts. So back in the day, can you imagine doing this shit today?
Oh, you would get shamed for
oh
being
my
like
God, dude. It would be like this like weird eugenics. Like I swear, dude, you had different color PE shorts based on your athletic ability. And there wasn't like 2 colors. There was like 6. They were ranked like there was, and like, dude, if you were rocking, like, I think you said that the best number or the best color was like navy blue.
Yeah.
You were a big swinging dick on campus, dude.
Yeah.
If you could walk out in those things at PE, they actually made them a little bit longer.
There's not a chance that I would wear anything other than those
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. There's not a chance. I would die trying.
Why aren't we pushing our kids to be like that now? Why are we like, and don't get me wrong, I understand the importance of inclusivity when we're talking about allowing people the opportunity to try.
Exactly.
Give them an opportunity. But if you don't make the team versus everybody makes the team, or if you don't get a trophy because you weren't the best offensive player, best defensive player, MVP, those were the 3 trophies we gave out that I remembered in like football. It was best offensive player, best defensive player, and MVP. If you don't get one of those, you probably should try a little harder.
Go look in the mirror.
That's right.
Yeah.
Self-reflection, and sometimes, for me, it's internal dialogue. My brain does say some pretty foul shit to me sometimes. I won't lie about that. But I use that as motivation to go a little more, to do one more rep, or one more set, or whatever it is, because I don't want to be outworked. I don't want to be lazy. There's always going to be someone who probably outworks me. Lots of people. Some people are more skilled than me, stronger, faster, all that. But work ethic is something that I can't control. I can't, So if even this morning, I was like, well, I screwed around, drank coffee, I talked to the wife for a little while, handled a couple things, sent some emails, and then I was like, well, you know what? I got about 45 minutes. I'm not going to get a full workout in, but I'm going to go in there and grind for a little bit. And I did. And even though in the beginning I said, maybe I'll take a day of rest. And then I was like, there's no fucking days off. So I go in there and do it. And it makes me, when I'm done, I'm so much happier that I did it versus when I don't do it and I'm like, you should have done it. Yeah, I'll just go eat a cheeseburger.
Like, have you ever like been doing a workout regimen and it will say do 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 and you're like, I can get away with 3 sets of 8. I mean, that's technically in the thing. Like, I hate that. I hate that. I hate losing to the 6 inches between my ears, dude. Cause like I will like straight up try and talk myself out of it. And it's just, it's not even laziness. It's like I'm in the gym. It is laziness. Let me rephrase. It's pure laziness. But like, it's not the same as like not wanting to run an errand. It's just like you're trying, I don't know. There's some weird part of like our lizard brain that just like justifies doing the bare minimum. And I think that that's a huge part of human nature and what really sets a lot of people apart from the next. Yeah. I mean, like, cause if you're just checking the boxes, dude, and it comes down to, and like I said, the same can be said about your own self-care. If you're just checking the boxes, it might be enough, but you're not going to improve.
In the movie Waiting, there's a small, a small clip in there that is has been influential a little bit in my life. Well, there's probably several, but I
can think of a few.
We'll forget about the game for now. And it says the difference between ordinary and extraordinary, just that itty little bitty extra. Yeah. And it really is true though, right? So you go until you're tired, and then if you go a little more, the next time you can go a little more.
You won't be exactly.
So how do we
progressive overload?
Yes. How do we get the rest of America or the world to buy into that part? How do we get them to say, I'm worth it enough to do this? Because when we go back to the priorities, you know how many times people tell me that, well, I see you working out and, but you're an entrepreneur, you own the business and, you don't have to, you can show up at 10 o'clock. You have time to do this. And I said, I make time.
Yeah.
I make time. Are you kidding me? I have 4 kids. I have 3 dogs. I have a wife. I have a business, a nonprofit, 2 other businesses we're starting up. Maybe even she's probably going to be watching this later. I'm getting pulled in many directions.
Yeah.
I'm still doing my speaking stuff. I'm going to Baltimore and I got a lot of things going on and I love that. But I will always make time for myself because I didn't before. I had this thing one time I posted. I said, if you made a list of all the things you love, how long would it take you to get to yourself? And it hit me personally because never.
Yeah.
Never. I would never get to myself if I just started making a list, wife, kids, blah, blah, blah.
I wouldn't even think to put myself on that.
That's right. Because we don't. And that is something that we should change because I got home. I started taking prescription pills, 20-something pills, like 23 pills a day on my good days, over 30 on my bad. You're talking mood stabilizers, pain medications, sleep meds, SSRI, all these things that would help me, essentially would drug me up. I wasn't living my life at that point, but it was covering up my symptoms, right? I wasn't dealing with them. They were still there. If I quit taking the meds and come out of zombie world, my problems still exist. So the active approach was learn about your problems, learn how to mitigate those, and start taking action, implementing that stuff. That's it. It's that simple, right? So, okay. A lot of times when I go do motivational speaking, I say, listen, I'll give you the secret to success, the secret to life right now so we can get that out of the way and I can tell you my message. And it's pretty simple. You do something consistently. Okay, so you have to be consistent, and you do something that is good consistently. People will pay you to do it for them, so they don't have to do it. I don't care if it's painting a house. Well, better than, husband Todd doing it. We'll just hire Jim because he owns a painting business, right? Jim's done this a lot of times. He knows how to mask the windows, or he has people to do it, and he knows how to paint. He's efficient with his time versus learning the mistakes as we go. So tattoo business is one of those things where you're drawing on yourself probably isn't going to, gain you the results you're hoping for.
Probably not.
So you go to the guy who's been doing it for 20 years and he knows how to be very efficient with your time and money and, his skills. I believe that it doesn't matter what your field is. We can all be that expert, but you have to work to continue to get better. You can't just say, I know how to fill out the paperwork to do a mortgage, so I don't have to, learn about new techniques or new programs or new, whatever. There's always something to learn. The world,
or just honing your skill in general.
Yes. Be the best. Why not be the best that you can in your field? Why not? I don't care if you're the water boy. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, always honing your craft. I mean, I feel like the hobbies that I pick are just endless. There's so much shit to learn. Or the most expensive, right? Like golf. Yeah. It's I could literally spend 100 hours a week trying to master golf, but I wouldn't. But at the same time, you'll still catch me trying. And so
get better.
And so in to your point of people not having the time, motherfucker, Elon Musk has the same 24 hours and he's sending rockets to the moon, drilling tunnels in the ground and trying to put chips in brains. Yep. Whether or not you love him or hate him, he still probably finds time to jump on an exercise bike every day or every other day or whatever.
One of the most innovative people in the world. And here you are shoving your face full of bonbons, watching Jerry Springer. Yeah.
But you don't have the time.
Right. Because we make time for that. Well, I just need to sit down for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Sit down and do...
sit down on a bike.
Exactly.
How about that?
I have a rower and it's I think it's 30 something pounds or maybe 27 pounds, whatever. It's not very heavy, but it has wheels. I can literally
wheel it in front of your TV.
When I first built it, I built it in my living room and then took it into the garage where the home gym is. And I rode 10,000 meters just sitting there for, I was like, I'm just going to row.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got to check out your equipment first. So I, started doing it. And that is I could watch a movie for 2 hours and I could row 20,000 freaking meters if I'm so inclined to do so, or 90 minutes.
Or it's sure, sit down and watch TV for an hour if you want, but do 25 push-ups every 10 minutes. 25 push-ups might take you 25 seconds max.
Commercial comes on, it's 2 minutes, do some air squats and push-ups.
Exactly. And it's and your total time spent under exertion is maybe 5 minutes max. And then I'll tell you what, dude, you feel good sitting on your ass right now, but sit on your ass when you're actually tired and it feels even better, dude.
My sleep has been crap. So for a long time. And one of the best things, like best pieces of advice that it was actually Jocko. And he was like, you should hit that pillow so tired and exhausted every day that you don't have to worry about if you're going to get good sleep because you're busy sleeping.
Yeah.
Like counting sheep or none of this stuff. You're not going hard enough in life if you're hitting the bed and like,
with energy and shit.
Yeah, I need to watch some wind down. But he's like, nah, you need to be done by then. So, and I'm not always great at it because I find time to sit down and do all this stuff too. But I definitely make time and make exercise a priority. And it doesn't matter. So even like with golfing, I walk now. In the beginning, I was riding a car, in the very beginning, it was ride a car, get drunk, and hang out with the boys. And now it's like, I want to take these guys' money or talk trash to them. I don't even care. I want to beat what I did yesterday. I'm going to compete against myself. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing, but I'm going to walk now, and I'm going to get some exercise. And it's 6.5 miles to walk around my course, and I do it. I try to do it twice a week. It makes me feel. It's like like I said it earlier, if I don't get the exercise, I'm not happy with myself.
Yeah.
But if I go and do it, even if I don't want to, at the end, I'm grateful that
you're
I
like
did
shit. And 9 out of 10 times, you're like, that wasn't so bad. I'm really glad I did that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If we pushed ourselves like that, so back to your question, like how do we go from, being the lazy version of ourselves where I'll do the 8, 3, the bare minimum versus I remember when I went to Soldier of the Month board and they asked me in we did a pre-board or whatever, and they said, what's the minimum and maximum for the push-ups? I had no idea what 60% was. And I told the first sergeant who was conducting the mock board, and I said, first one, I don't know the answer to that question at this time, but I will find out and let you know. And he said, what's 100%? And I told him, and he said, why do you know that it's 81 push-ups, but you don't know that it's 43 or 42 push-ups? And I said, I don't ever look at the bare minimum.
Yeah, I've never thought about the fucking minimum.
I only look at what 100% is, and that's my goal every time I go do a PT test. And he said, that's a better answer than knowing what the hell is 60%. He was happy with that, but I wasn't because I didn't know what he wanted me to know.
Yeah.
And I knew that after that they were prepping me to go to the NCO board, and so I could become a sergeant. Well, corporal first. They decided to not give me the money in the beginning, but it was
imagine that.
It was early. I was young. I think that for me, always looking at the maximum should always be the goal. So I want my kids to see that and feel that and think that, like and I see it sometimes. I see them getting lazy or the entitlement. And I know sometimes they have, like the high schoolers, they have a lot of homework. They have, a whole lot of stuff going on. Plus they're cheerleaders and have extracurricular activities. And they want time with their friends. But doing the bare minimum is not okay with me. As a parent, that's bothersome because I want them to strive for excellence every time. Not for me. I don't care. I tell them I've already passed 10th grade, 11th grade. I don't need to do it again. But I want you to be the best version of you. And that means, like, the harder you work now, the more knowledge you gain, the easier life will be, going forward. In fact, I saw this thing that said the people who didn't graduate high school versus the people that do, the amount of money that they make throughout their lifetime is so far. It is ridiculous in the amount. And then you think, well, high school's like the bare minimum. It's supposed to be, right?
Dude, I tell people this all the time. Like, especially kids. Like, my girlfriend's niece, 12 years old. And, she's heading into middle school here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And I think back to, like, how easy it is to fuck up your whole trajectory. Because, like, when I was a kid, when I was in, 8th grade, I luckily got all the bullshit out of me before high school. Like, I never got in trouble in high school. That's good. I got, at least with my teachers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But, I was a piece of shit in middle school. Just class clown.
Yeah.
And, I knew all my stuff. I would do my homework. I just wouldn't turn it in. I was just, one of those, just, slab dicks. Too busy chasing girls and whatnot, skateboarding. And, because of that, when I got to high school, I was in remedial algebra, right? So then on top of that, not only am I behind, But in remedial algebra, I'm learning all the shit that I already know, but just failed the class because I didn't turn in my homework because I was super disorganized and stuff. I'm like, dude, my parents try to help me every night. Like, here's your math folder. This is your completed side. And then like they'd go through my backpack and find a week's worth of homework crumpled up at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. I don't know why. To this day, like I don't know why, but that put me in remedial when I was in high school. Passed remedial, passed algebra 1, which was my, then I went to stats after passing algebra 1. So I think that I was sitting in stats as a junior with all other freshmen and then like a couple of other shitheads. And once I passed stats, I was done taking math. That was the requirement to get into like college and whatnot. And so then I did the same with language, dude. I just didn't want to learn a language. Like I think that the only class I ever failed in high school was Spanish 1. And it's because I didn't try, and our teacher was a baseball coach. And I was like, this guy's not going to give a shit if I don't do anything. You know what I mean? And he didn't care. And so like I get to college and they're like, oh, hey, Dick, you have to take math and you got to take some language courses in college. And I'm like, dude, so because I didn't want to take middle school math and high school language for 2 years, I am now doing all this shit at a college level while having a job and ROTC and all this other shit. So it's like, like I just made it so much worse for myself. And it's like, if I wanted to go get my MBA, don't know why I ever would, but like, let's just say I did. I'm going to have to take like a business stats class, calculate. Like I'm going to have to go to like Folsom like college and take a whole bunch of prereqs and shit because I was busy being a slapdick in middle school. And so it's like, everybody says that like none of this shit matters. It does matter, dude. Like what you do in high school, especially if you can get into like some of those AP classes and knock out prereqs and stuff. It's huge, dude.
It is.
And it's way less money you have to spend. Yes. Yeah. I was spending hella money on math units that I should have just done. And then, in college, like they're like, you have to pass a language course or else you're not going to graduate. So not get my commission.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, shit, like what classes are open? Of course, I put this off to like the last week of registration and it was American Sign Language. So it's like, I reasonably know Spanish at this point after 30 years of living in California. Yeah. And now I'm in there like A, B, like, dude, it's just like, it was brutal. It was brutal. And it's because I was a lazy ass procrastinator. I don't even know. F. This can't be C, no, right? Like this. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was E. A, B, C, D, E.
I thought F. No, that's E, F.
I thought that's N and M.
Oh, yeah, it is. See, I would fail. Yeah. Don't ask me.
I'm over there like, hi.
Yeah, I know one. It's like this one.
Yeah, dude.
I'm good at that. It means you're number one.
I remember in that class, dude. First of all, to pass my first semester of this course, I was watching YouTube videos because it's complete immersion.
Right.
So like, and it's not like they can speak English if they want to or like speak if they want to. They're like full blown deaf professors.
Yeah.
They can't speak. They can write shit down, but they're not going to. And so like I had to watch so much YouTube, and I found this one professor that was like really, really good at teaching basic sign language on YouTube. And it was really weird because like the lesson plans were like almost the same. And then the next year I sign up for ASL2 and I walk into my classroom and he's fucking teaching it. I was like, oh shit, this dude's like the head of the
I know you.
Yeah. So that was nice, but like he was a fun teacher, and like I remember this one time we got in a circle. Everybody was on the last day of school. So he was like, let's just play a game. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Or he signed that. So we sit in a circle and we have to go around. You have to sign a word that starts with A. Then the person next to you signs a word that starts with B, and it just goes on until people are eliminated. Right. And so we go around like 100 times, and I'm like counting people so I can like see what word I have to come up with. And I'm on F. And I'm like, oh, shit, they already said like every word that I know that starts with F, and like, which wasn't many, right? Like I barely made it through this course. And so it got to me and I just threw up the bird, dude. And this dude just busted up laughing. He basically was like, I'll allow it. So I didn't get eliminated, but hey man, sometimes you got to take a chance. And it does work. I don't know if that's
Fister would have worked. And I want to know what that is in sign language. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I don't want to spell it. I need like its own, we always used to say elbows deep. And so we would do that because that's how we are.
I bet you that's already a sign.
I think it is. There's so much stuff that, at least when I was in, all that stuff would get you canceled.
Yep.
Everything we did, all the names for the vehicles, they were all sexual innuendos. They were.
Think about like nose art.
Yeah.
From like World War II and
all
shit.
that stuff. They had naked ladies on everything, on half of the stuff.
Yeah.
We couldn't do any of that.
Vietnam, like sticking cards and shit in their helmet strap. Yeah. Like the little naked lady playing cards.
Yeah. Things have changed quite a bit. And I think like cancel culture sucks because people forget that there's so many things that we've done or how we've fallen short in our own lives, and we're willing to jump on the internet and judge other people, whether they're celebrities or not. And don't get me wrong, there's some things like people always can learn a lesson from something, but when we talk about shutting down their livelihood or not allowing them to, be members of society anymore, it just seems ridiculous, right? Like these same people say, we need prison reform. We need to help these guys when they come out of prison so that they can live fulfilling lives and be, contributing members of the community. Okay, well, Karen over here, who lost her stuff over the, dipping sauce at Papa John's. Like, I understand she's out of line. We need to, help her see the error of her ways. I'm okay with that. But when, people are just vile, and they would be, if someone talked to their mom or something like that, they'd lose their shit. So we rarely have respect for people who aren't in our face. It's actually, we wanted to start this little thing called Keyboard Warrior, where we would bring people who fought on the internet.
Oh my God.
Screenshots of their conversations. I shouldn't put this on there. We're going to bring them in and let them fucking fight it out, dude. Cause
that would be hilarious.
Granny doesn't know what a triangle choke is or a rear naked. She doesn't know all this stuff, but she knows that, let's go Brandon means fuck Joe Biden. And she knows that, Trump and Biden, like whatever argument they're having on the internet, she knows that Kanye and Pete are having a little beef over Kim K right now. So she's okay with these people coming in and bashing each other. She doesn't care about UFC, but she does enjoy this. So you can get people from all walks of life to enjoy these.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we hope that people are better at communicating, instead of talking crap to each other. That way you don't have to go to
people
violence.
don't think that they have any common ground.
Which is
so much more,
ridiculous.
there's so much more common ground than, and like, and a really good, like blaring example of that is the fact that both of you are screaming like lunatics on fucking Twitter right now. You want to find some common ground, dude? There's your common ground right there. You both need to get the fuck outside.
Look at that. You're both right.
Yeah. So how do you think this whole Ukraine thing is going to play out?
It's hard to say because, this has happened before. Similarly, I think that, well, first off, there was a tweet. I think it was a tweet from Biden when they were, when he was still trying to get elected. And he said that the reason that
the one that like Biden doesn't want to go Putin doesn't want to go toe to toe with him or something.
Yeah, Putin doesn't want him to be elected because he's the only one who's gone toe to toe with him. And I think that's quite funny because from what I understand about Putin, he doesn't give a shit about if it was Biden or someone else. I think he's kind of going to do what he wants to do anyways. It's kind of his personality.
He's a provocateur for sure.
Yeah. So, and he's not a dummy. So what is our goal or our mission, right? Is to just protect Ukraine and, our ally? Is it because we know that if we get into this with Russia, there's other people who are going to want a piece of us too. We just got out of the longest war we've ever had, and we didn't do a very good job exiting there. No. In fact, what I've learned about leadership is that extreme ownership means that if your subordinate doesn't accomplish the task, goal, or mission set forth, it's because of your failure. You didn't give them the adequate resources. The
shit rolls up.
That's exactly right. The proper training. So when you have the commander-in-chief saying that he rejects the military's report on our exit of Afghanistan, that cost 13 American U.S. service members, over 100 people total died, and I think it was like 18 or more people injured, including our own local Marine Sergeant Tyler Andrews. Like, okay, so we're going to do a better job now. The morale has got to be some of the lowest it's been in the military. They're kicking ever. They're kicking people out if you don't have the mandate, which then now it's going to go away, right? So here we are with people who are tenured, seasoned veterans who have been to combat, people who have been part of that 20-year war, and they have the experience that you need and leadership that that we covet in the military, and then you're going to tell them to kick rocks and you're going to let someone else do it.
Who's going to do it?
Right.
What are they going to do, like a giant main push in 4 months when COVID isn't the talk of the town anymore, and they're going to...
This is not a good scenario for us.
No. And I feel like we whipsaw so much, and that might have something to do with our administrations and just how widely different they've been over these past 3 administrations. But like when I first got in, and like we were talking about tattoos last time, like how they use tattoos as a drawdown. It's like all the guys that had neck and hand tats that had 10 years of service and, been to Fallujah and shit and like all those crazy places. Yeah, you're out. And then a couple of years later, Trump comes in and it's like we're surging again. I don't even know if Trump was in office when we started surging again. We literally, it was like 2012 or something. Yeah. Or like even our little ROTC battalion, dude, went from 200 soldiers to like 3 squads. And then by the time I left again, we were back up to those original numbers. And so it's like those whipsaws, and I can only imagine the effect that has on the big army and like the, real military.
So when we put those guys in a situation where they don't trust their leadership, they don't trust or buy in and believe in the mission, what are they fighting for? And I'll tell you that people who have nothing to fight for, that doesn't last long versus someone who has something to lose. They have motivation to fight, to keep going. And so if we send our troops there who don't believe, right? I went to Iraq because for me it was part of 9/11, even though it didn't happen simultaneous and it had nothing to do with the airplanes crashing into the World Trade Center. This was just another example of terrorism and dictatorship that was, essentially someone who's supposed to be a leader who's killing their own people. And I thought in my head at the time, my naive 19-year-old self who signed up, if someone was torturing our people here and killing, we couldn't defend ourselves. If we didn't have the Second Amendment, I would be hopeful that some other country would come and step in and protect us from, a government that was oppressive and killing our people. Us going to war in Ukraine, Russia, is the same thing that we've been doing for this, the big war machine over and over. We get involved in situations that it will be hard for us to pull out or do some sort of quick drawdown or any of that. It would, this is going to be a long process, cost us a lot of money and a lot of lives. The politicians aren't the ones who go to war. And the part that bothers me the most about just that part is we are supposed to be electing these people to represent the people. That's, e pluribus una means from many one, right? So these people are supposed to come from us and be represented. But what do? They get there and they say, well, I'm a Democrat. I have to vote on my party lines, not the people I represent, my party lines, or my party will not back my next election. And they do it on both sides. And the only people who lose or get screwed is us.
Is us, yeah.
That's right. Every time. So this is going to be no different than any other war because It is going to be our families that lose the soldiers, the Marines there. It's going to be our families and our communities who mourn their loss. And it's going to be the government who, says we're going to use this money for X, Y, Z. And it's not going to go to schools. It's not going to go to roads. It's not going to.
Well, and I feel like we spend so much time, prepping the conditions for us to come in and be the moral saviors. You know what I mean? It's like, how long have we been doing this bullshit with Russia? I mean, and that's what you talk about, the longest war that we just got out of. It's like, that's all just a byproduct of this bullshit that we've been doing with Russia for the past 50 years. Plus.
So I just saw this morning that Biden said he was going to put sanctions now because of Russian aggression. My question is, so what are you going to do? Tell him he can't trade with America or he can't do whatever? Do you think that's going to deter his, military movement maneuver? No, he has made up his mind on what he's doing. And we have a choice to either help stop him or not, interfere or don't. And I understand massive
reserves too. Not a lot of people don't understand how the reserves that Russia has. If we cut them off, they can, their infrastructure sucks. It's not great, but they can foot the bill for a little bit, enough to do some damage.
Yeah.
And my whole thing in looking at this is if this had happened in the past, I don't care how you feel about Trump or Biden. I think that anybody who wants to fuck with the U.S. has been licking their chops for the past 9 years because or not 9 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
Because there's so much distrust and whether he's toe to toe with Biden or Trump, I can tell you, I mean, we can speculate on which one he'd rather go toe to toe with. I think that we'd all say that
one of them doesn't know what day it is today.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Biden would just be you know the thing, come on, man. And Putin would just be no, I don't know the thing.
Me and my buddy Popcorn.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then Trump would just be he loves me. Putin loves me.
The greatest ever.
I'm yeah. So it's no matter what, I think that we just need a better statesman and perhaps, maybe we should revisit this whole idea of having this global reach, dude. I mean, we'll always have the reach, but it pisses countries off when we're just dicking around in their country on a massive base that we built. And I understand where some of these places are coming from now. Somewhere like Korea, I'm sure they're happy to have us and we're happy to be there. But with being in the Ukraine and then the Ukraine joining NATO, that's from Russia's standpoint, plain devil's advocate here. If I was running a regime like Putin is, I'd be fuck that. Let me tell you what's not going to happen.
I own them.
Yeah.
You're not doing shit.
Yeah.
And so and
they bring up Kosovo and shit. This has been something that a lot of Americans right now think that this is a new thing. It's not.
No, it's been bubbling on the surface
hundreds
forever.
of years, if not longer.
The Cold War helped, it was all a precursor for everything that's happening now. But just like you said, the NATO thing is really what turned it up from, bubbling to boiling. And now, well, you're exactly right. If you play devil's advocate and if you try to, see things from the other side of the table, you understand why Putin doesn't want them.
Let's just say there was a counterpart to NATO, right? You know how we had we had the Allies and the Axis, right? Let's just say that that China, Russia, North Korea decide to form their own fucking thing, and they're just gonna put a base in Mexico. We're just gonna put one there. They have, let's just say that they somehow broker a deal, and they're gonna put a fucking massive military base in Baja, California. What the fuck would we do, dude? There's not a chance we would let that happen.
So I see that, but I think you would have to add Iran and Venezuela into those, and potentially Venezuela would allow.
Yeah,
them to do that,
Venezuela,
right?
Yeah.
So if you think about this kind of stuff, the people that hate us and the people who, and Russia has been helping Iran, by the way, do nuclear shit, powerful, we're not. It's interesting because for example, right? Let's just say that we took our politicians and we put them in, the Coliseum, and we said, you guys can fight it out, and the winner decides the outcome or whatever.
Put that shit on pay-per-view, bro. You'll solve the debt crisis
real quick. I'm buying, like, every TV in my house is gonna have that playing.
Straight up gladiator politicians, dude.
So imagine how much better they would be at communicating if this was the result of the breakdown of communication.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have people who are, okay, we're at an impasse, we can't figure out a way to deal with our problems other than I'm going to have my people kill your people. Well, let's just start with one first. You go out here.
Yeah.
You go out here, and then we'll see how
You're our representative, dog.
That's right.
Like, we elected you.
Go get them. So, first off,
hey, if you kill them, I'll vote for you again next year.
That's right. You're not going to be voting for the Chris Christie's of the world who had bypass and ate themselves fat again. Like, you're not going to be. You're going to be like, listen, have you ever heard the story of Achilles?
Yeah.
We need everyone to be like La Sierra High School, 1966.
Yeah,
right? Like, you're going to figure this shit out real quick.
Like, here, Chrissy, here's some white shorts.
Bro, like, I don't even know how you do that. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think that people who use, well, I'm not going to get into that, but it bothers me that people don't want to do the hard work to achieve their goals, right?
Yeah.
Like, they want to cheat the system. And yeah, it's no different than these politicians push us into a war, right? Or leaders, if we just talk about Biden, he's gonna get us into a war that he doesn't fight. And then he's just gonna go on Twitter and, use this media to push his agenda.
That's a huge problem with politics too, is that, like, you used to get people's statements, so to speak, or like a press release, like, from a podium. Yeah. Now it's written by a massive, PR, and like those were written by PR teams too. I'm not stupid, but like, you could see someone give a speech and tell whether or not they were genuine. At least like somebody could,
and probably had some input in what the speech said, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then you have mannerisms, you have tone, you have all those things. But now it's like, even fucking multinational media companies, instead of going and getting a direct quote, will just screenshot a fucking tweet. It's such a poor way to communicate.
So let's think about, right, like how much, because we've talked about how things were like my parents and grandma and all that. Okay, so let's transition just a little bit. Think about like crypto and how it's blown up in the world, that in the chaos that is cryptocurrency. What do you think that this is going to be like in 10 years? Do you believe that everybody's going to be using this shit, that we're going to shut down the banks as we know it, or something to that extent?
I really think that sovereign solvency is going to become an issue. And so like for me personally, I'm definitely not a crypto shill, but I have a bunch of crypto. And the reason that I have it isn't to hedge against inflation, because that's not fucking working right now. I mean, Bitcoin ain't shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like that's not why I want it. What I'm more worried about right now is like sovereign solvency. Because now, that said, or, hyperinflation is one thing. If, obviously you can use exchanges to mitigate that, and you can use foreign exchange to mitigate that. But what worries me is, first of all, like, all this shit going on in Canada, and they're claiming that they're freezing crypto wallets. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if they're able to do that. I'm sure that there's ways that they're able to. But I really think that the currency itself is probably one of the lesser significant things that will arise out of the technology itself, out of blockchain. I think that things like smart contracts and stuff like that will, and like even some NFTs, I think that right now we're seeing a big use case for NFTs as art, and I think that will wane a little bit. I don't think that we're going to be selling JPEGs of monkeys for $3 million for that much longer. I mean, maybe we will. I could be totally wrong. That's why I love doing this, by the way, because in 10 years from now, I'm going to pull this video up and I'm going to be like, holy shit, dude, look at me fucking acting like I thought I knew something. But, yeah, I mean, like God, where do I want to go with this? That my mind just spins when I think about all the possibilities of crypto. But I'm legitimately worried not about my money disappearing, but like when I'm retired, going to buy a gallon of milk and getting rung up for like $60,000.
Yeah.
And me pulling, a $1 million note out of my fucking wallet like I used to pull out 100 or whatever, and handing it to the lady and saying like, hope you got change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the kind of interesting thing about the United States is that like we back the dollar.
Right.
Like we do. And it's a hard concept to break down because like people are like, well, the gold standard and then tying it to X, Y, or Z. But like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if there's a gold standard or not. Like the American laborer is essentially who backs the American dollar. And like, I don't know. There's, and then, you pull in like the Chinese American debt loop. And if that ever implodes, like what the fuck's going to happen, dude? Like there might be a scenario where like, if you're not holding a stable asset or an asset that's at least not subject to governance, yeah, or not even confiscation, but just fucking like stupidity.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
they ruin all the good stuff.
Right. And so it's like you look at the dollar. You look at the dollar and like, these are things that Bitcoin or whatever your crypto choices is not subject to. But like, think about our Congress trying to push through $1 trillion infrastructure plan and they couldn't make it happen.
Yeah.
The best and brightest of our leadership couldn't fucking make it happen. Whether you believe in it or not, not only could they not like if you strip away the dollar amount, they couldn't even come to an agreement.
Right.
So gridlocked, right? Mm-hmm. But all that gridlock over $1 trillion. Meanwhile, another arm of our government just printed like $20 trillion with almost no pushback at all. Yeah. And so it's like, what this whole pandemic made me realize is that there's so fucking much that we don't know about monetary policy. There's a lot that we don't know about how the Fed works and the shit that they're able to get away with. Like, and the shit that Congress, like, I'm happy to see that there's such a huge spotlight on Congress's trading habits, because how are you paid $200,000 a year and you're worth $150 million? Like, fuck you. Yeah. Right. There's something seriously wrong there.
And so, well,
and do you think that someone with $150 million gives a fuck about you and I, like, trying to open a business or trying to build a studio or trying to run a nonprofit? No,
they only care if our business gets too big and they'll buy it.
Yeah, that's exactly. It. They'll fucking acquire it.
Yep. So that brings me back to, okay, so if we go back to even like Biden and Ukraine and the relationships that he had there and Hunter and all that shit that obviously looks fucking terrible, right? But look at where we're at now in America with President Biden as our commander in chief, as the leader of the free world, and we have gas prices that are highest. We have food prices that are skyrocketing. Housing has been terrible and it's getting worse. Like, how is this possible that when we talk about liberal policies or progressive policies, things that are supposed to be affordable housing, things that are, it's all nonsense when this is the result that we have. And meanwhile, we're saying that we've had the biggest growth in jobs, ever. Or, well, we're just giving them the jobs back that they lost during COVID. Like, what the fuck are we really talking about here? And whose eyes are you trying to pull the wool over? Because I believe that the common American understands, at least somewhat, that the government is in charge of, all of this shit when it comes, like, because of the crash in 29, and they said, hey, government's got to be more involved in, what they're doing over at Wall Street and, how we have prices on things, commodities. Everybody. What
they were really saying is we want to get in on the action.
Can we get insider information so that we can go from 200K to 150
well, dude,
mil?
It's like so the Fed just passed trading bans this week because the chairman of the Fed, Chairman Powell, was caught trading Hella times, dude. They have like blackout periods.
It's only when they get busted does this shit come to light.
Well, but dude, it's like they black out. They have 8 meetings a year, and they black out the 10 days leading up to midnight of the last day. So 10 days, 8 times a year. That guy has 80 days that he cannot trade, and he fucking traded on like every one of them. Yeah. I'm just like, dude, like it just doesn't. It just the rules don't apply. No. It's fucking silly. Yeah. But
they apply to us because if we did this shit, right?
We might be worth $150 million, and we might be able to put together a campaign, and we might be able to go and fuck with their interests, dude.
They can't have that. They gotta control.
No. It's fucking gross.
It really is. And I hope that the more we talk about stuff like this and the more that we put, I think, not just information, but the ability to access information out there. Because when they do all this shit and they hide it, most people believe that the government is doing good by them and just has their best interests in mind when they go about their daily business. And the truth is that they don't. Because if they did, we wouldn't have, like, when we think about even vehicles, right? So automobile accidents was like the number one cause of death for a long time, over 40,000 accidents a year. Okay, well, we weren't doing things to, like, they made small improvements to make stuff faster. They didn't ban cars, right? They didn't ban any of that kind of shit because they were making too much money off it.
Look at alcohol.
Exactly. Even tobacco, they're finally they took away like some of the tobacco. Yeah, like more, but now you have the vape pens and everything, which I don't even know the long-term effects of that. I'm sure it's going to be great too. Yeah. So, we're not doing things to protect the American people because we don't really care. Otherwise, they would have banned the car. 40,000 deaths a year. Yeah. No way. If we had 40,000 firearm deaths, the Second Amendment would have gone away a long time ago. So what are we doing to hold them accountable? And why is it such a clusterfuck, in my opinion, that like you said, gridlock, when they try to accomplish any goal or they try to pass a bill, they don't get support from the other side. Are they such petulant children that they don't know how to work together? When I was a kid, let me tell you, a teacher would put you in one big t-shirt, you and the guy you weren't getting along with, and you had one sleeve and he had the other, and you were inside that, and you got to be best buds. Yeah. And so,
hey, go hold each other's pocket.
Yeah. Why can't we make these motherfuckers communicate and get along? Like, what power do we have as citizens to make them do better? Well, at the end of the day, it's voting. And if we get rid of if we do not allow, we talk about having two-term limits, right, for people serving in Congress. Okay, fine. But you don't need them to pass a law that says they can't. You just vote them out after every time. That's right. And this isn't rocket science or rocket surgery or any other form of it. You just vote for someone new. And when they don't start getting the picture, guess what? It's a new group every time you do it. So you don't have to worry about, this person being a career politician and then going from $200K a year to $150, or making a bullet train with your nephew doing the work, or husband, whoever it is, and then it stops out in the middle of Bakersfield and there's nothing out there. We just wasted billions of dollars on fucking nothing. Like, I'm tired of getting screwed. Yeah. My taxes go up. Everything keeps going up. We keep footing the bill, and that's why everybody's leaving California.
I love seeing those signs around California that say your tax dollars at work. I'm like, no, dude, I saw my tax dollars at work when you walked out in a fucking Cartier get up. Get the fuck out of here.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah. I don't even know, dude. Too rich for my blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this shit in Canada is crazy though, dude. And like I was reading I read an article the other day that was published in 2014, and it was titled "Why Canada Will Become a Dictatorship Under Justin Trudeau."
Do you think that what's happening there could happen here?
I think that do I think that a bunch of truckers would protest?
Do you think the government's response? Yeah, I should clarify. So I believe that at some point, the people are going to do something to like say, okay, enough.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what that looks like. If it's truckers, if it's industry, if it's people walking out on the job, like whatever it is, what is the government's response? Do you think that they'll freeze accounts, that they'll charge people criminally for protesting? Not violent. I'm not talking about burning building down. None of that shit.
I think it'll be some like Patriot Act 2.0 shit.
Yeah, me too. That scares the shit out of me. Who the fuck is giving these guys power to say it's we the people now instead of you?
Well, and
people?
then, dude, like, so you think about when the Patriot Act came into effect and the amount of data that was floating out around about us, right? So you read what year was the Patriot Act? Was it 04?
Yeah, something like that.
It wasn't 01. No, they didn't pass it that quick, did they?
It was like 04.
Yeah, I think it was a couple years later. But so like let's just say it was 04. Think about the amount of information or data that's floating around about you online in 04 compared to right now. Like, you have Cambridge Analytica, you have the Google umbrella going up, and all of a sudden all those apps that we gave permission to are now communicating with each other versus these individual businesses. Like, did you know that when Google became an Alphabet's an umbrella company. So like all these companies that we gave individual data to, they used to just be like just one directional, unidirectional. It only went to that one company.
Yeah.
Once Google got wrapped up under Alphabet's umbrella, now all that information is being communicated between all these other apps, services, products, and so on. And so it oh shit.
They were fast. They were already writing this shit. They were already writing this shit.
October 26, 01.
How do you go from September 11th to that?
Yeah, that's wild. Wow. But yeah, I mean, think about how much more digital our lives are now that we have like Alexa and shit in every fucking room. We have smart watches and phones and all this stuff. Like, smartwatches weren't around in 04, dude. The amount of information that they have on us now is unfathomable. And so like their capabilities are so much higher. So like people think that like we should be, wrapping the fucking tinfoil around our head right now, but it's happening.
Or too late.
It's happening to a Western country that's our neighbor. This isn't just fucking happening like, somewhere halfway across the globe. Like, it's right next door now, dude. And I want
the nicest neighbors
right.
we got.
And I want to talk to all the people that, were moving to fucking Canada, whether it was because of Trump or Biden. Like, oh yeah, you're going to move to Canada? Let's talk now, dude. Do you still want to move to Canada?
Yeah. How's that feel?
Yeah.
For
you want all your fucking, all your bank account?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Has your bank account gotten seized here?
So I run what's generally a lucrative cash business in tattoos, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that my artists, they're essentially independent contractors, 1099ers, and they have utilized PayPal and Venmo specifically, or Cash App. And now if you have over $600, $500, whatever the fuck it is, you got to start paying taxes or doing whatever on this shit. So it's tough and I understand like the government wanting their taxes and all that kind of shit, but despite my belief being taxation is theft, whatever, the government has grown out of control. They've gotten too big for their fucking britches, and they're violating our rights. Like, this isn't the whole purpose, and maybe this is why I lean more conservative. Like, I'm a libertarian, but I suppose I lean more conservative because I believe in smaller government. Like, they fuck things up, and I don't mean like they don't do any good. I mean the stuff that we ask of them or that they're supposed to be doing and fulfilling, they screw up, right? In the beginning, it was pretty simple. Hey, here's some money for the roads. You keep them taken care of. Here's some money for schools. You make sure the schools have educators, people who are, properly trained and qualified to educate our children. And instead, we're teaching a bunch of bullshit. We're teaching, gender studies and all this other stuff. And I'm like, hey, listen, dude, I know my BS degree doesn't make me a real scientist. I get that. So I leave it to the doctor when you're born who says whether or not you're a male or female. And listen, I'm not anti-trans or anti-gay, homosexual. I don't give a shit what you do, who you love. In fact, the more people you love, the better. There's never enough love in the world. I believe that. But when you try to tell my kids that someone is some other gender because that's your belief or you bought it, to me, that's bullshit, because a doctor says you're a male or female when you're born, not some fucking Joe Schmo. The janitor doesn't decide whether or not you got, meat and potatoes or you got nobody. And I don't care what you identify as or whatever. I don't give a shit about any of that. But when you're teaching my kids that instead of science, history and arithmetic, I don't.
Dude, you know what really chaps my ass is that they go through school and then I talk to them when they're getting ready to buy their first fucking house and they don't know how to be an adult.
That's right.
Financial literacy is like I think that me and my cousin have this project. We're calling it the Financial Literacy Project, FLIP for short. And like we're trying to find a way to like solve that problem. Yeah. And it definitely starts in schools, but like in our research we found that Americans have we're like number fucking 15 when it comes to financial literacy worldwide. Wow. We're not even in the top 10. It's really bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
That's funny because we were actually just talking like 2 days ago, my wife and I was telling my kids about this. I said, when I was in middle school and in high school, they had a class, home economics, that taught you how to sew, how to cook, how to change a tire, how to balance a checkbook. Things that you would need to use as an adult. Now we're teaching a bunch of bullshit that is not going to help my kids become more efficient and self-sustainable, like taking care of themselves. It's just not. And I think, well, dude, what the fuck are we doing then?
It's like every time I've gotten a new job, I'm like, okay, awesome. They've seen my value. They see that I'm an intelligent person. They see that, I'm an asset here. And then they hand me a fucking like I-9 or a W-4. And I'm like, duh. Like I'm fucking Googling how to fill them out and shit. And it's like if you were to ask a high schooler the difference between a W-2 and a 1099, they might be earning one. They might have already earned one by the time they graduate high school. And most of them won't even be able to tell you the difference. And if a W-2 kid, had a part-time job in high school, gets out, graduates and goes and gets a 1099 job, does that kid know to set aside his tax money? Probably fucking not. And now that kid has a $30,000 IRS lien at 19 years old. And it's like, it's shit like that, dude. And it happens all the time. I mean, like I see people that, and it's not even necessarily things that they don't need to teach you how to become a homeowner in school. I mean, there might be parents that don't fucking want their kids to own a home. Who knows? These days, who the fuck knows? Yeah. Nowadays, I feel like the more you teach a kid, the more liable you are to get cussed out by a parent. But even when I talk to somebody who they might even be a homeowner already, and they have like a great example. The two of my favorite clients, dude, they were living, like they had nice things, but they were living check to check ultimately. They were a car accident away or a car breakdown away from like being kind of fucked. You know what I mean? And so I started talking to them a little bit and like I'd go over to their house and hang out. And this one night I'm hanging out and there's a mortgage statement on their counter. And like, I know I'm not supposed to have prying eyes, but like, I was like, just out of curiosity, like I see what they're doing. They tell me like, man, we really need to update our kitchen, And they owed like $79,000 on their mortgage that was at a 6.25%. And at the time rates were 3.75 and their house was worth $450,000. They just had no idea that they were sitting on over $250,000 of cash that they could access. And 30 days later, they did access that cash and they paid off all of their debt. They remodeled their entire house. And now they're not like thinking about like, shit, do we want to move? Like, no, now that house is their house and they love it. And like, I just think like, where would they be? And I'm like, I'll get off the cross here, but like, where would they be if somebody didn't come along and say like, hey, you guys have $250,000 in cash that you can use right now and still pay less. Like I literally, because of their rate, despite the fact that they got $100,000 plus cash, they were paying less every week. That's right. And it's like, now instead of being a car accident away from being destitute, they're a raise away from being able to now go on vacation every year or save some money for kids' college or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like they would have had no idea. And it's like, how many people, I mean, you talk about financial literacy. It's like, if you're not willing to learn how to build wealth for yourself, like what really are you willing to fucking learn? Because it's probably not much about other people. I mean, like, and I don't know. I go through like questioning everything, dude. And like the stronger I feel about something, the more I question it.
Yeah. Well, even like, so if you think about like the rich dad, poor dad, right? Like the things that, is it in here? So yeah. So probably. It's so interesting to me that the people who have generational wealth, I mean, they kind of understand what it takes to be able to have a business, own this stuff, and not necessarily have to be there day to day running operations, versus the folks that know they've been in generational poverty, and you have one-offs that make it out, right? It's not a typical or foregone conclusion that, you know, you started from, you know, humble beginnings, but you're going to make it to the top 1% or 10% or whatever. I had, you know, my parents were very different in their work ethic or whatever. My mom was on government assistance, you know, her whole life, and my dad would never accept, he won't even get a VA, you know, and he got shot, but he wouldn't even get a rating. I appreciate what my dad, you know, his nobility and all that, but he earned that. Regardless, he wanted to show me and my sisters what it was like to work for everything you got. And despite his best efforts, he never, you know, he did well for several years, but not enough that he could have people running stuff. He could make, you know, have, you know, residual income from whatever sources that he, you know, that he created for himself, opportunities outside of a 9-to-5. And for me, like, especially because I live with my mom so much, I knew I didn't want to live poor. I didn't want my kids to live like that or even know really what it was like to struggle. Now, financially at least. I believe, though, that what they get to see now between my wife and I is, number one, if you work hard enough, you'll eventually, and you keep watering that seed, you'll eventually get fruit, right? But not in the beginning. First you water a seed, you get roots, you don't see them. You get a trunk, you see it, but there's no fruit. It grows branches, no fruit. Leaves, no fruit. Eventually fruit, you can't eat it, it's not ripe yet, right? The last thing you get is the fucking fruit. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep watering that seed. My kids now get to see that because, you know, we've done the tattoo shop, we're going to start Kinetic Threads, all these things. The nonprofit is doing well. We had over 1 million interactions in the last month. We're doing the, wow. Yeah, it's crazy, right? That's just on Facebook. That's just on Facebook. So those things, like, my kids get to see that, but I want them to know that this doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen if you do it for a little bit and then stop. So it's being persistent. Never allow, like, there's always going to be some adversity, but never allowing that adversity to be so overwhelming that you don't ask for help or you don't figure out a way over it, through it, around it, whatever it takes. And I want them to know that that's exactly what I've learned in my life, like that you keep fighting, you keep scraping, you keep grinding until you reach your goal. And then you just look to the next goal. You set the next one and you keep moving to that because, you know, they're going to, my hope, I'm doing Biden's job. I'm going to create some jobs. My kids are going to go, and, you know, and they can go to college and do whatever they want, but they'll have an opportunity. And that's all I want, is to provide them an opportunity to see what it looks like. Cause I want them to do their own stuff. I don't want them to keep working for me forever. But when they're young and they're teenagers, I want them to have a job, earn some money, see what it's like to have to sweep and mop and scrub the toilet, because, you know, those are the things you do now. You don't forget where you come from, and then you respect that person who's doing that job because that's where they're starting, not where they're going to finish. And I want them to know that even if shit sucks for a bit, you can make it better.
That's literally like why I put bricks on the wall, because I believe in that brick by brick mentality. Like almost everything I've done that gave me any sense of like pride or accomplishment has been an incredibly slow burn. And like, it's funny because like the praise you do get for it, like, it feels good, but like I'm not special, dude. I just tried, and maybe I didn't even try harder. I just tried more times.
Yeah, we can all give more effort.
I just fucking tried more times. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like I could try smarter. I could do more research. I could do a lot of shit. I could prepare more, but
that foundation, that brick by brick, is the foundation.
Yeah,
and it's what makes it sturdy and lasts the test of time.
Yeah, and it's like every like the last time we recorded, I was telling you how fucking just crazy that stupid stainless steel with the ice thing in it. It's like, that was a dumb mistake. I forgot to turn my mixer on for the first 5 minutes. That was a dumb mistake. And like, I could have edited those shits out, but I didn't, because like, I almost want to see the failure, because if you don't ever see the progression. You know what I mean?
We don't have growth or make these, big, personal leaps if we don't have, it doesn't come without failure. It does not. If everything goes smooth and goes your way, you learn shit.
Well, and it's boring. Like, if I just sat down and created like a baller podcast that got 1 billion fucking shares and shit, like, I would have been like, well, that was really easy. Like, what, again, like you said, what's next? Like, I wouldn't really spend much more time on that goal. That's why I feel like most of the things that I try, I'm drawn to, like, are just incredibly difficult.
That's why I love surfing and golf.
Yeah.
Because they're very humbling. When I first started surfing, I had this surf guru, Danny Nichols. He's from Huntington Beach. And he is like, so he told me that you have to surrender to the ocean. You have to give in, because you're not stronger than the ocean. You never will be. Mm-hmm. Right. And for someone who's like struggling with personal strength, I feel weak, I have all these things. And he's saying, yeah,
you're never going to feel
You're
strong.
never going to be as strong as you want to be, or stronger than that ocean, or, and so you have to give in. You have to, if you want to be one with that ocean and with that wave for a little bit, then you're going to have to give in to the movement and the power of this. And it's raw. And I was like, damn, I can't force my will on this wave or ocean. It's going to kind of do that to me. But if I accept that, and its speed and movement and all that, I can, focus my efforts into riding this thing and be smooth. Golf is, I actually heard Michael Jordan talk about this. He said, the reason I like golf so much is, like, in basketball, there was outside influences. My teammate, they could, cause you lose a game, make a mistake, you could screw up. But there was other influences. The other team, they're going to try to stop you from doing what you're doing. In golf, there's nobody stopping you from doing what you're doing but you. There's nobody that's going to execute the shot but you. There's no one who's going to put that last bad shot aside and move on to the next one but you. It's up to you. And it was always a competition, towards yourself. Now, of course, he liked beating guys for money and making it competitive that way, but it was always about self-improvement. And
that's a great point, because like I've made this comparison, much like many people who've come before me, but like, I've played a lot of sports, I've done a lot of activities, I've climbed a lot of mountains, both proverbial and literal, but nothing parallels life better than golf, like more than golf, because like most of the time it is the hardest fucking thing you're going to do that day. Like, and what's funny, dude, is like, it puts your fears in perspective. Like, I was golfing a few weeks back, and for me, dude, golf is all about little victories. Like, I've got a 1-hole memory. Yeah. I wish I could get it down to a 1-shot memory, but like, if I get, like, I literally right now, I'd probably shoot mid-90s. You know what I mean? That's like a decent day for me. Yeah. If I can leave with a par and a birdie, it's a huge fucking W for me, dude. Yep. And the funniest part is they almost always come on 17 and 18. So it's like, I'm just at my most frustrated when they finally do happen. And it's that whole keeps you coming back aspect of golf. But, I've never ever walked onto a golf course and just had an easy round ever. My best round of my entire life was the hardest grind. Yeah. And like, it's so similar to life, dude. It's like none of the easy mundane shit that we do brings you much satisfaction, but the shit that's super difficult, and like a lot of the stuff, dude. And I always used to talk about this in the Army, like when we'd be out in the field on like an FTX or something, I'd just be like dreading it the whole week. Yeah. We'd go out there, it would suck the whole time, and then get home on Sunday or Monday and I'd sit on my couch and I'd be like, God damn, that was fun. And it's like, man, I wish that would be fun. Like not only in hindsight, but like you have to train your mind to enjoy the process. Like, and not a lot of people enjoy the process. Everybody wants to get jacked, but nobody wants to lift the weights. And like that equates to a lot of other things in life too. Everybody wants to go out and shoot an 80 on a golf course, but you're not going to see him at the driving range in the dark on a Thursday. You're just not, most people aren't going to do that. It's the guys that do. And so I think that more people need to find that, dude. And it's
100%.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical activity. I obviously encourage it. I mean, like for me, like I go in these spurts where like I'll do nothing but golf for a couple months, then nothing but fish for a couple months. And then I'll be stuck in here for a couple months. And like those are three pretty different activities, like 2 solo sports and then like photography. But you can do photography outside. So get the fuck outside. Yep. I mean, like, and it's just, I don't know, man. Well, if you can find that passion and just do something with it. Like everybody's, when they see this place, when people walk in here, the few times I've shown it, like they've been like, damn, dude, when you said that you had a real estate recording studio, this is not what I pictured. And it's like, well, because Mr. Realtor, if you sit down and start talking about real estate, I'm going to fucking get up and leave. Mm-hmm. Nobody gives a shit about how many houses you closed last month. Like, talk about you. What are your, like, what keeps you getting up every day? What keeps you going? You know what I mean?
When you said golf parallels life, I thought back to, and in particular, you said, you know, the par birdie comes on like 17 or 18. So the other day I had it was a decent round. It wasn't great though. I had a couple doubles and I was, you know, sometimes I get frustrated about that stuff and I take that to the next shot, but I get down to 18 and I just missed my par putt on 17. I was a little upset, so I got a bogey there. I go down to 18, and I smoked my driver, and my next one I hit, and I thought that maybe it would run up but be a little short, and then I hit it, and I flushed it, and I was like, that thing could run up there. And there's some guys on the green, but this is a par 5, so I think, like, you know, I'll probably still be a little short. Well, what ended up happening was it rolled into the trap, but it was pretty much pin high, and it was, you know, it was a great shot, but it didn't work out how I wanted, even though I hit a great shot. Sometimes life works out that way. You can do everything in your power, right? And it still doesn't, you still don't get the result you want. And that's okay. That again, we go back to, that doesn't mean we quit. What ended up happening was, and I struggle sometimes out of greenside bunkers. I thin them, whatever reason I've struggled with them. So it messed with my confidence. Well, lately I started putting in some extra practice time. I hit one out. It wasn't where the pin placement was a little tough. So it rolled out. I had 10 feet and I birdied it. 18, I left with the birdie. I was so happy, you know, and it is pretty much, I'd forgotten about 17 in the missed par putt and just enjoyed that birdie there. And you're right. It's part of the process, right? Like, so I hit a great shot. It didn't give me the, you know, 15 yard out, chip up there or whatever, but that's okay. Cause I had a decent shot out of the trap. I hit the sand behind it. It popped up, and
we were talking about how to exercise resilience earlier. Fucking take up golf. Like, oh my God, humble dude. Pie. If you wanna test your fortitude, man, swing a golf club. Oh, yeah. Try to get that little ball in that stupid tiny hole.
Oh, it's funny.
It's incredibly hard.
Man, I know we've talked about a lot of good things today. I'm grateful to come in here and just talk life with you, man.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we got to keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me a little bit about this golf tournament, and we'll drop some links to it.
Yeah, so the golf tournament's Warfighter Overwatch Swing Against Suicide. We're going to raise some money to help, essentially put our programs out there for more people to access and curb the suicides between vets and first responders. So it's going to be June 20th. I believe the shotgun starts at 1 p.m. Registration is at noon, and it's going to be at Sierra View Country Club in Roseville, California. It's $150 a person, $600 for a foursome. There's all the sponsor information on the website, warfighterOverwatch.com. And
do you have any idea how many spots you got left?
I don't right now. I'd have to. Fawn is the one who accesses all that. I just
they're going quick though. I talked to her.
They are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that I know that we're probably good for at least 2 foursomes. So we'll get that set up, and yeah, man, we'll get the word out.
It is going to be a really good thing. And again, so this is, even if you're not good at golf, it's just fun to come out there, hit some balls, spend some time with other people. In particular, I'm going to have a couple guest speakers as well. And we're going to talk about, trauma in our community and how we can make things better for those who are suffering.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, dude.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Man. Always a good time.